People talk about wanting generational change and leadership and culture, and this is it.
Isn't the toothpaste kind of out of the tube?
I just don't think that a lot of creators today think about Facebook.
I just want to harp on this because I'm telling you, it will change everything.
I agree.
What was your experience watching that movie?
It was weird, man.
If I'm going too hard, you just cut it out.
You make it seem like I'm some kind of barbarian.
Today on the Colin and Samir Show, we're joined by Facebook founder and Meta CEO, Mark Zuckerberg.
I consider this to be like the final boss of tech CEOs. We've had a lot of tech CEOs on the channel in the past year or two, but Mark Zuckerberg is the final boss.
So at the end of last year, Mark talked about this return to OG Facebook, which is the Facebook that we grew up with, this more intimate, exclusive environment. And the first move that he's making is bringing back the Friends tab, a place on Facebook now where you can just engage directly with your friends. So we wanted to talk to Mark about why make this move now? What does this mean for the future of how people connect on the internet? And more specifically, what does this mean for us as creators if the internet moves in a direction of more intimate connections?
In this episode, we are also joined by MrBeast.
How's it going?
How's it going, man?
Jimmy gives some pretty candid thoughts about Facebook and what he would do as the CEO.
All right, here's our conversation with Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you guys.
Thanks for being with us, man. So you just announced that you're bringing the Friends tab back to Facebook. And that's like very reminiscent to how we started using Facebook. There was this time when you launched the news feed where we went from going, just being in this environment with just our friends and a place to connect with our friends and, social media. The newsfeed kind of laid the foundation for what became the creator economy, like the ability for content creators like us, brands, publishers to create piece of content that went out to many people, millions of people. So why bring back this concept of the Friends tab now? Why come back to the one-to-one or
so this is
intimate?
phase one of bringing back OG Facebook.
Okay.
All right. So here's basically how I'm thinking about this. It started Facebook, and it started off as this online directory for people to get to know the people around them in their communities. We had all these different utilities on kind of old school Facebook, and then it sort of evolved in this direction that one part of it, which was sharing a newsfeed, just completely kind of outscaled and ended up being by far the most important part of the product. And we just focused on that, and we focused on it. And now we're here 21 years later, and that feed part in the sharing ecosystem, it's used by 3 billion people around the world. People spend a lot of time on it. They enjoy it. But this funny thing happened, which is that a lot of the other kind of fun and useful parts of the original experience, we just sort of didn't focus as much on. And not only did we not focus on them as much, but I kind of look around the internet today and I realize that no one else actually recreated a lot of these things that used to be pretty magical about Facebook either. So I actually think that there's this whole opportunity that I think is going to be pretty fun to go after and build, which is just to kind of go one by one and build up a bunch of these things that used to be these joyful experiences that people had as part of Facebook that just kind of don't exist on the internet today. So I think the Friends tab is kind of an early and simple one, right? It's kind of like newsfeed, but it's just all the content from your friends, and the idea is just to put a little bit more of that emphasis back on connecting with friends. But this is really phase one. We got a lot more stuff like this coming. I'm pretty excited about this. It's going to be a fun project.
So you mentioned their OG Facebook. I vividly remember joining OG Facebook, and today I filtered my account back to dates in like 2006, 2007. And on any given day, I'm basically using Facebook to like text my friends, right? Or like DM essentially. Like it's just going nonstop. But my question to you with like adding the Friends tab back and trying to create more friend-to-friend connections isn't the toothpaste kind of out of the tube potentially in terms of users now having experience with the feed and wanting almost to rely on the algorithm? Like I assume sometimes the algorithm maybe knows what I want more so than my friends do.
Yeah, I mean, I think for general content and entertainment, that's probably true. I don't think it was a mistake that newsfeed ended up being the main way that people use not only Facebook, but basically all of the other major feeds and social products that are out there too. I think that this is like pretty clearly it's a great product. It's a great way to kind of learn about the world, to find content that's going to be relevant to you, and to have different social interactions, right? A lot of social interactions in an old feed used to be, you see some friends' content, you comment on it. Now I think the modern kind of social interaction is you, from a social app, is you find some content in feed, you reshare it into a group chat, and you're talking to your friends about it there. So I think that for all these reasons, newsfeed and other feeds and similar products have kind of evolved to be the primary thing. And I don't think that's going to change. It's not like, I don't think that like we're going to get to a state where people are using the Friends tab or any of these other things that we're going to use necessarily more than they're using newsfeed. I just think that these also have a place where they're fun and they bring joy and can be an interesting thing that I think people want. And there's no reason why they shouldn't exist in the world. And I just think it's an interesting quirk of kind of the modern social apps and the internet, that these things that we sort of used to have ended up evolving into something else, and nothing really kind of like took its place. And basically, no one went back and built a college service, after after Facebook went on to be a broader thing. No one went on to. I mean, I don't want to give away too much of the other stuff that we're doing in phase 2, 3, and 4, but it's but I think like there's no reason why there shouldn't be a good friends feed of content from your friends. So I think it's gonna be fun. Yeah, no, I don't think it's gonna be as used as like the main news feed, but I think people are gonna like it. And I think when you add in a handful of other things like this, it will change the way that people feel about and use Facebook.
Do you feel like there's signals that you're getting from the internet today that suggest that maybe, people do want more of that intimate setting, connecting with friends? Or is this a bit of like the opportunity to reshape the way the internet is moving right now?
I mean, it's both. I think people both want like really interesting, well-made content. They want to see the best content, regardless of whether the person they know, made it or not. It could be, some creator they follow. It could be some person who they've never heard of. So that's one part of it. And then I do think people want like real deep connections. And you want everything in between. You also want to be able to, I think one of the interesting things about early social networks was this feeling that like you could just keep in touch with more people than you could before. And it was always the case that if I wanted to call like my best friend or my mom or something, I wasn't primarily communicating with them through Facebook. I wasn't like writing on their wall is like the main way to talk to them. But the kind of the superpower there was you could have a few hundred friends, you could stay in touch with people, and then if you kind of went back home or wherever you're traveling around, you could ping people who were kind of in that space, and you could make really interesting connections and keep in touch with people. So I think that there is kind of this whole space. The way that gets expressed over time changes. So the kind of intimate connections, I think, have moved more to messaging.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. This whole kind of like in between zone, there's a range of different groups and things like that kind of enable all different kinds of communities. Feed, I think, is going to continue moving largely in the direction of just the best content, right? So which I think increasingly is created by creators. But one dimension of best is socially relevant to you too. Sometimes it's not just like the funniest video, it's like the video that tells you something about someone who you care about, or someone who is relevant to your life that has some utility to you in a different way too. So I think from that perspective, just having an experience where you can make sure you get that stuff if you want is going to be pretty valuable.
I know in the Q4 2024 earnings call, you said you thought Facebook could be a lot more culturally relevant than it is. Is that part of the reason why that you think it was like missing some of that friend-to-friend connection? Or, why do you think, at least in terms of your expectations, it didn't keep pace with that cultural relevance?
I actually think a lot of that is around creators, right? It's this funny dynamic where, there are more than 3 billion people who use Facebook, and they don't just use it a little, right? I mean, I think like the average person who's using Facebook spends more time on it than they spend on Instagram or a lot of other services. But for whatever reason, and there are a bunch of things that we could go through, if you look at like who are the kind of the top creators on the internet today, or even like, okay, the top 1,000 or 10,000, most of them don't think of Facebook today as their primary home for content, right? So a lot of people will reshare content to Facebook, and the content becomes available there. But and you guys know this, it's like there's when you're designing content and making stuff, you kind of have an audience and a form factor in mind. And so if you're primarily doing it for Instagram, it'll feel a certain way. If you're primarily doing it for YouTube, it'll feel a certain way. And then you might reshare it to the other places, but like where you have in mind as your home really matters. So I think that today there's this kind of interesting nature of just how it evolved, because I think Facebook did start off primarily as friends and not as creators and kind of a content feed. That I just don't think that a lot of creators today think about Facebook as the primary place that they can go. But that by itself actually creates what is, if you think about it in economic terms, it's like this huge arbitrage opportunity. Because, all right, you have like, 3 billion people who are using this product a lot, want really good content. Our monetization systems on Facebook are quite good. And I think that regardless of whether you look at it as a business opportunity for creators or or just a cultural opportunity to be able to reach a lot of people if you invest in that, that's something that I want to make just a lot more attractive for creators this year. And to me, I think creators are cultural relevance these days, right? I mean, it's obviously being able to have connect with your friends and have those like close experiences. I mean, that matters a lot too. But cultural relevance, I think the cultural figures that people care about these days are creators. That's why you have like, kids grow up and, I think more kids aspire to be creators than anything else. They would have maybe been, other media jobs in kind of past generations, but today this is where kind of all the juice is.
Did you anticipate that when you started Facebook, or did that surprise you that this creator economy came about?
These things always take somewhat different shapes, but I guess like when I was starting off, like I guess I believed that there would be all these different people who would want to share and express themselves in different ways. I primarily focused on the social connections more than kind of like the professional content development. But I think one thing that we talked about even in the very early days was that this was going to be a large platform and there would be a new set of kind of professional, like a new professional class of people who would create great content for this. And it was going to be different, right? Because every new medium in the past has been different, right? And it starts off kind of similar, right? It's like when we had radio and then people got TV, the first people on TV were radio broadcasters sitting and talking in front of a TV. And then it was like, no, actually you want something different because you want people who are sort of like charismatic for TV and can kind of engage in that medium. So the early days of the internet and social media, a lot of it was people sharing kind of more traditional news or traditional TV, but like that's not really optimized for the internet. And I think now you've kind of seen, I think both because of current events and somewhat of a loss of trust in traditional media, but also I think frankly just it's not quite the engaging format that I think people want that like meets people where they are on the internet today. So it just makes sense that would sort of, it's not like these things go away. We still have radio, we're still gonna have TV, we're still gonna, all the media types that we had before are still going to exist. But I think we're definitely entering an age where kind of the internet and social media creators are the sort of most kind of esteemed and elite cultural figures. And I think that's really cool. It's like people talk about wanting generational change and leadership and culture, and this is it, right? It's like now there's just this whole set of new people who can kind of, like make a living and create an influence on culture and create different kinds of communities. And I don't know, I think it's great.
I think what's really interesting is I remember so vividly, like my brother's older than me and he was able to get on Facebook before me because he was in college. And I remember the like deep desire for that exclusive experience. And when we finally got it, what played out was almost mirrored real life social dynamics, right? Obviously, it was kind of like some people were more popular than others and some people posted photos and got more engagement than others. I think it's just so interesting to me that you play that out all the way, and what ended up happening is like a shift in trust. And that is one of the most fascinating things. Like I can say honestly, like I remember feeling excited if a lot of people engaged with my content from my high school, but to play that out into like, okay, actually you can reach millions of people and become your own voice. Was there a moment where you recognize like, oh wow, that's going to happen? Like this is a thing that's going to happen.
Well, to me, one interesting part of this is there's a change in sort of the whole topology of media in that, it used to be that media was sort of organized physically and locally, right? So there were big kind of mainstream outlets, and then there were local outlets. There's like local newspapers, local TV, things like that. And there were a handful of interest-based kind of magazines and things like that. But I think that the internet has just made it so that people can connect to the content and the creators who they want to engage with way more. So like that just makes this much more natural growth of niches of just like all kinds of weird and fun like interests that that were totally underserved before, because maybe there wasn't like enough of an audience or a way to reach a specific audience that cared enough about a specific thing that you could create like a whole community and media and content around it. But on the internet you can. And so that to me was some of the most interesting stuff even early, was you'd see these groups get created, or you'd see creators start to grow who sort of represented or talked about really kind of niche specific interests. And to me, that's like the beauty and the weirdness and the greatness of the internet.
I mean, our first career was making a YouTube channel about lacrosse. It's called the Lacrosse Network. And I actually like largely...
It's not that niche. I mean, it's a little niche.
I mean, it's niche for like, the idea was to make a TV channel about the sport. And essentially that played out across the internet.
We've been in rooms where it's very niche, where we ask people, raise your hand, and there's not many. But you're right, it's not that niche.
But
sure.
I want to say that like, a lot of calling it that had to do with the movie The Social Network and just like the excitement around that time. And I'm bringing that up because, correct me if I'm wrong, but you are wearing a shirt right now that Jesse Eisenberg wears in the movie when Eduardo comes to the house in Palo Alto. Is that right?
Yeah, no, that's true.
I know that movie.
Saw this online at an auction. He's like, you have to get this. So I was like, all right, yeah, sure, let's get it.
Wait, so that's the exact shirt?
Yeah, this is his shirt.
Oh my God. Does he know?
It's my shirt now. It's my shirt now. But it was his shirt. Yeah.
Do you think he knows that you own the shirt now?
Now he does.
Now he does. Now he does. Wow. Good to know. I mean, I've seen that movie so many times. I'm very familiar with that shirt. So,
yeah, I only saw it once, but
really?
I took our whole company to see it. Yeah, no, I figured everyone at the company was going to see it. So anyway, so we might as well just take everyone to go see it.
We did. What was your experience watching that movie?
It was weird, man. I mean, it's like, cause they got all these very specific details of like what I was wearing or like these specific things correct. But then like the whole narrative arc around my motivations and all this stuff were like completely wrong. It's like the whole arc is like, I'm like somehow motivated by trying to find a girlfriend. It's like, I was dating Priscilla before I started Facebook. And then like you have this whole stuff about, I don't know, it's an unfortunate part of the internet, how people kind of like make up a lot of the founding mythology to what they want. And it is true that I made a bunch of other websites and stuff when I was at Harvard, but people cast it as if like Face Mash, that prank thing that I made, was like the precursor to Facebook. I guess maybe because they have face in the name, both or something. But I mean, I made a lot of stuff when I was at Harvard. Face Mash was like, it was a prank that I made, right? It was completely separate from Facebook. So, but yet, to this day, 21 years later, I think largely because of the movie, people are like, oh, yeah, you started this as a service to rate the attractiveness of people. It's like, no, I was just a kid. I was like doing a random different thing. It's like Facebook is a completely different and kind of much more interesting and ambitious project than that and completely different. So yeah, I don't know. And then obviously the other characters in it were like, it's like, all right, I like barely knew most of them, right? It's like it turned into this whole thing as if this is like the main like the main founding story. But anyway,
makes for a good movie. But it is interesting now that like even not to be so like meta about it, but like we're now talking about a world where you have the opportunity to just control your own narrative, like every individual can, right? Like whether it's through
Well,
podcasting content, yeah, in some way, shape, or form. So
well, you have the ability to express your own narrative.
sure,
I think I mean a lot of other people also try to kind of define your narrative for you too. So
yeah,
in some cases, I think people increasingly have an imperative to try to define their own narrative, or else others will sometimes and often nefariously define
Mhm.
it for you. So I think that's that's a somewhat tricky thing. But it yeah, I mean it gets back to um, we try to allow people to express themselves in an authentic way, and I think like over time, typically I think people have a pretty good ear for kind of understanding what is authentic
Sure,
and what is
yeah.
what's real.
So is there like, just on that note of, OG Facebook talking about that movie, The Social Network, another narrative was around like the concept of advertising in the world of Facebook. And, as creators, I think a lot about the future of advertising and how it plays out. And I was just wondering about like thinking through a business case for the more intimate, maybe localized connections with friends, largely because I see, DMs being such a major part. Like you said, like messaging has
Yeah.
largely gone to DMs. I think about like, Instagram, our pieces of content, if a piece of content hits on Instagram, it means it has a large number of shares, right? It has thousands of shares inside of DMs. Is there a world where like there's a business case for a more intimate version of the internet, or creators like us thinking through like, is this, as we play out our business, you know, is it always going to be one to many advertising business, or is there actually a more localized version of what that looks like?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question. Are you asking from the perspective of creators? Is there going to be a
I,
business around messaging,
I
or
I think I
just of
guess I'm
products
first
overall?
I'm first asking in the context of like the platform, and like is it to the platform's net benefit if there's more intimate connections rather than like one creator to many people?
Well, I mean, I think when you're building these platforms, you want to build what people want,
Yeah,
right? So I
sure.
don't. I mean, it's like the hard part about what we do is building services that people like. If we're able to build a service that people like and a billion or more people use it, we're going to have a fine business, right? But our business is not driven by advertising, right?
Mm,
We have like an advertising team. It is probably the part of the company that I spend the least time on.
hmm,
The whole kind of differentiation of what makes us or a company like us succeed, or if you're a creator, is can you build something that people are interested in, that they want to use, that creates value and joy in their life. And if you can do that, then I think that there are plenty of ways to basically monetize that. And I think that that'll be true for messaging too. um, but because the kind of building the service and the content part of it is so much harder, we really just focus on that and getting that to scale, and then focus on building up the business around it later. So, WhatsApp, um, it has billions of people using it. We're really only getting to the point now, after more than 10 years of building it here, that we're really focused on monetization around it.
mm,
And I think that will be, I think it'll be very interesting. That'll be kind of the next leg of our business, right? It's Facebook, then Instagram, then WhatsApp. Um, that'll probably kick in as a major kind of leg of our business before any of the AI stuff reaches a massive scale as an independent thing, or the Reality Lab stuff. So, but yeah, I think that there will be an interesting experience there where people will be able to message with their friends, and then businesses always kind of want to be where people
people
are
are.
organically.
Yeah.
So, whether you're from our perspective, you have people connecting with their friends or family or in groups. That's going to create an opportunity where businesses are going to want to engage with people on the service that they're using. If you're a creator, I think it's similar. We have channels and things like that where
Yeah.
you can engage with your community, and then once you kind of have that connection, then whatever your business model is, whether it's sponsored content,
Hmm.
or if you're trying to upsell people to other channels that you monetize and sell subscriptions, or you're trying to sell tickets to things or merch, or whatever
Yeah.
the your products, whatever you're making. Um, I think that should work in messaging too. It'll be a little bit different. It'll take
Right.
some kind of energy to figure out how to make that work. But fundamentally, I think the really challenging part of it is going to be around kind of building the very engaging experience.
Yeah.
I think like messaging with friends is one thing. Messaging with AI and interacting with AI is another. And that's something that creators talk a lot about, specifically like AI creation. And you mentioned there, that your job is to build things people like. I'm sure you have to build a lot of things. People like some things, they don't like others. I remember we were at Meta Connect when you launched the AI avatars, and it was, Kendall Jenner or MrBeast as an AI avatar. What did you learn about people's willingness to communicate, interact with AI, with the lens that I think creators are sometimes concerned and or skeptical, right? Because we're looking for the real human interaction with our content. So we're always curious, what have you learned about how audiences are willing to interact with AI?
That's interesting. So that was a precursor to this product that we built that we call AI Studio, which is basically the ability for anyone to craft an AI experience themselves that both they can use if they want to use it privately, or they're going to be able to share it and make it kind of an experience that other people can use. And I'd say, all these things are still pretty early. And I think it's, there's like tens of millions of people using it. So it's a fraction of what it will be in the future. But one of my core beliefs on AI is that I don't think that there's going to be like one single AI that everyone wants to use. I think that there's going to be more diversity and interestingness of the content. And this is sort of a different belief that I have than that I think every other major company in the space has, right? It's like OpenAI is building ChatGPT and Google is building their thing. And, just the different labs kind of have their main assistant. And we're building Meta AI too, and a lot of people use it. It's like, okay, there's 700 million people and growing quickly who use Meta AI. But my basic view is that there are going to be a lot of different things. It's not just going to be Meta AI. Like, I think every small business is going to want to have their own AI agent that can help out with customer support and sales for people who use, who want to interact with them. So that's hundreds of millions of agents. I think a lot of creators are going to want agents. Almost as sort of like a piece of performance art, but a way to also engage with your community, right? Because a lot of creators, what we hear is like, especially if you're a bigger creator, a lot of people reach out to you and you want to engage with them, but you're limited by the amount of hours in the day, and they want to have some engagement with you, but they'd obviously rather engage with you or your content directly. But if you craft an experience through some kind of creator AI, then that could end up being like a pretty compelling thing that's maybe not quite as cool as talking to you directly, but better than just sending a message to your inbox and getting nothing. So I think that there's that. And then I think that there's just going to be a whole lot of interesting content. Like today, a lot of what the feed experience is you're like, some people create a reel or different kinds of content and you share it. And I actually think in the future, there are going to be all these like one-time use AI experiences where people just kind of, just like you put all this time into making, whether it's a podcast or a reel, that might be an experience that a lot of people have for, maybe they spend a few minutes with it. Like I think that there will be a whole category around AI like that, where people will basically spend hours crafting kind of funny or quirky or different kinds of AI experiences that are interesting in different ways, and then they'll share them out. And I think that there's just like, we're really just early days in this, but there's going to be a lot of interesting content around this. But I would guess that in a few years, this will be like another content type, just like video and photos. Like people just create AIs that people use as content that are fun.
Are you familiar, Mark, with the dead internet theory?
Yeah.
So for those who are unfamiliar, basically there's a growing theory that like, AI agents, automated agents, bots make up a large portion of internet traffic. And that like there's a reduction in how much we're engaging with human generated content. Do you feel like there's like, truth to that? And in this world of increasing AI content and AI agents, does that get more and more true?
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to one of the things we talked about earlier, where a lot of the more intimate and authentic connections are moving to messaging. So
Got it.
if you look at like the kind of public content that you would see on, if you're searching for Google, for example, on Google, then yeah, I mean, I think that like the quality of Google search results for a lot of things probably has gone down. I don't know if that's primarily or all because of AI. I think a lot of it is also that a lot of interesting content is moving to private services that aren't necessarily indexed in Google. But I think that that's a thing. And a lot of stuff is like behind paywalls now. So it's like you can't just search for it and get it. But to me, and I would guess that this is probably, resonates with most of the people watching this. I think most of your interesting online experiences with friends at this point are in messaging and group chats.
Right.
And it's like, to me, that's where both like group chats and one-on-one, obviously, but that's where I get kind of the funniest content, the most insightful stuff. A lot of the stuff that it gets posted onto social feeds is sort of workshopped and like, even if it's not formally workshopped, it's like people first are talking about it and like, coming and like honing ideas through debates and things like that in group chats. And I think that that's just, to me, that's like the core of internet culture today.
Yeah.
So that's very much alive. And I think that, obviously I think people are going to talk to AIs a bunch there too, but I would guess that volume will still remain primarily,
I wanted to,
people.
I think I'm so fascinated to see how that plays out. I wanted to go back to something you were talking about in the beginning around bringing more creators to Facebook.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say, like, for me, I think right now, especially in the context of video, right? Like we create video, we make long form podcasts. We also make some behind the scenes content. I think for me, I can close my eyes and imagine what a YouTube video looks like, what a TikTok video looks like, what a reel looks like. But it's harder for me to imagine what a Facebook video looks like. And so I think that would be like, at least something in my eyes in this next chapter is kind of defining what the right Facebook creator looks like or what the right Facebook video looks like. Does that make sense?
So do you think that that's something that we need to do?
I think,
because I don't know that the other services defined that. I think it's almost the creators.
Yeah, I guess it's the creators.
I actually think, in my opinion, like a Facebook video, at least as far as I can tell, is a video that is probably shorter. It's incredibly visual right from the start, and it can be consumed without language. I think for us as long form podcasters, we just haven't seen as much success with long form video, and don't know that many creators that are making long form video. I think that would be the push, is to show creators like who is the model citizen, who is succeeding with really long form video on Facebook.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my point before was just that there's sort of a vacuum here because there are a lot of people who want content, and I think it's somewhat underserved today. It's like they're spending a lot of time on Facebook, right? There are billions of people, and a lot of the content that they're seeing is stuff that has been shared primarily on, whether it's Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or other places, and then reshared to Facebook. So it's good content that's there. But I think that there just is an opportunity, a very big one, for creators who want to make investing in Facebook as their primary home, and want to basically explore what is the native content that works well, that is different from that. I mean, the thing that I really agree with in what you just said is it's going to be somewhat different from these others. And yeah, so a Facebook primary creator will create content that fits really well there, and then they'll reshare it to the other places, just like people reshare stuff today. But yeah, I just think that there's a huge opportunity here.
I think if we're going to be talking about what the future of Facebook video could look like, the world of creators, we have to add in another perspective. And I think there's no one better than adding in our friend, Jimmy Donaldson, MrBeast.
Oh, there he is.
Welcome to the
Jimmy,
show.
what's up, man?
How's it going?
How you
How's
doing?
it going, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
We're kicking around right now talking about ideas for Facebook video. I felt like we couldn't have this conversation without you. Also, because you posted on Threads on July 5th, 2023, you said, like this, if Zuck should make me CEO. So it feels like we're in a good moment right now. We're here. We're all together. What would you do if you were CEO of Meta?
Well, before we jump into that, fun fact, when I talked to Mark one time, it was over like a random Zoom. this was years ago, and he was. It's just a funny story people might enjoy. He invited me to his lake to like train and do MMA, and I was like, "What the fuck?" This is before he made that like public, and people even knew he wrestled. And I was like, "What is really?" I was like so shocked because I was expecting him to be way more nerdy, and I remember just being so confused because he wasn't public with all this stuff back then. I was like, people were like, "How'd the conversation go?" And I was like, "Well, honestly, he just kept talking about like MMA and wrestling and that kind of stuff." And I was like, it was just not what I was expecting. So
what you don't ask people to fight you the first time you meet them?
I wrestle everybody I meet for the first time.
No, it's like I mean, it's my joke. If I ever had a podcast, it would be hard conversations where it's like first you fight and then you have a conversation.
That's actually a good idea.
Ludwig did this thing where it's like chess boxing. So you play chess and then in between your moves you box, like some version of that, like coding and MMA.
Man, that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, Mark's.
All right. Anyways, back to your question.
Yeah, go ahead.
What would I do if I was CEO?
Yep.
That was the question, basically.
That's the question.
I mean, one thing I think really sucks is like on YouTube you can do different audio tracks. So 70% of my audience on YouTube, they don't speak English. So I upload videos and then you just upload a bunch of different files. And so if you click on my video in Mexico, it autoplays in Spanish. And we get like 20 million views of video in Spanish. We get 10 million views of video in Portuguese, etc., all around the world. And what's brutal is when I post those same videos on Facebook or any of your platforms, I can't import the dubs over. So my viewership is always just infinitely lower because, you know, people from Mexico and people from Brazil and things like that, they can't watch it with dubs. So, I mean, I know the teams are working on that kind of stuff, but if I was CEO, that's one of the first things I would fast track because it's such a, like, obviously everything you do, you know, revolves around the creators and people who use the platform and you want to help them get more views and more engagement and stuff like that. And it's like pretty crippling. Like once it clicks in your head and you're like, whoa, only like 15-20% of the world, you know, or whatever the number is, consumes content in English. And if you're not dubbing, you literally can't reach, you know, majority of the world. It's like brutal. It feels almost barbaric to use a platform where you have to like pick a language. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's definitely a good one. And I think that this is a good example of where AI is going to be very helpful too for auto dubbing into basically every language. But yeah, no, I mean, I think that historically, I do think that there have been a number of tools like this that we've needed to add. And our team is, especially on the Facebook side now, is really prioritizing building out all the tools that creators need to make Facebook their primary home.
Yeah, the auto dubbing I think will be it. We actually, in one of our 16 languages, we swapped out the voice actors and started doing AI dubbing, and the retention's actually 1% higher in that language. Because when you do AI dubs, you can use my voice instead of it sounding like a voice actor. It's me speaking. So even though it's like marginally worse, because it sounds like me, people are watching a little longer, and it's getting so much better every month that I wouldn't be surprised if ideally in a year I just post a video on Facebook, check a box, and then it like you said, just AI dubs it in 20 languages. That'd be ideal.
What's move 2, Jim? If that's move 1.
Well, I mean, I'm just gonna go down the list of things I complain about a lot. I mean, I think in general, something I think every platform, it's like another thing that feels archaic is when I'm on Amazon, I just one tap buy. I just like, you know, tap and it just shows up on my doorstep. But when I see ads on other platforms so many times, like even on YouTube, like if I hold up a product in a YouTube video, like go buy this pin, it's like you would think you could just tap on the pin and then just go same address as normal and you just hit yes. And, you know, and same thing on Facebook. I always, especially because you guys have our card saved and things like that. So I always wondered why it's not more frictionless just to buy stuff, you know, because all the time I see things, I'm like, oh, I'd buy that, but I'm kind of lazy on content. I know Instagram Shop and things like that, it's a lot less frictionless, but I make videos. So particularly on videos, I'm like dying for some platform just to figure out where if I just say, hey, buy this, it should just be super frictionless without even leaving the video so it doesn't kill retention. Just tap and then just a notification in my head, it should pop up and just go, same address. You just hit yes. And then that's it. And then the video just keeps playing. You know what I mean? Conversions would be so much higher and people would enjoy it so much more. So that's another thing. I don't know. I don't even know if that's realistic, but
I mean, I think we're always trying to make it easier to do that stuff.
You're
I mean,
good.
I think most people probably want to consider purchases slightly more than just doing it right in line. But
Jimmy would prefer if it was just right away.
Yeah, I know. Well,
Yeah.
it's like brutal too. And again, I don't even know if this is what people want. Just from my perspective, I hate when people have to like leave the video.
No, it makes
because
sense.
it's
I
bad
do
for
think
retention.
that better kind of understanding within content of segmentation of what the different things are, so you can engage with the different things. I mean, this is all stuff that's kind of coming. It's not long-term research. It's just stuff that needs to get built into products. I mean, I'm curious, how is your short-form video monetization on Facebook going?
It's actually pretty good. Weirdly, it's like over 2 times higher than every other platform. So I don't know what you guys are doing, but
well, that's the arbitrage I was talking about.
Yeah.
I actually think that there's a thing here that that's not that abnormal of a result. I mean, our monetization on Facebook is quite good. I mean, our ad system is quite good at basically being able to recommend content to people and be able to, and like you said, I mean, a lot of people are buying things on the platform, so we can make it frictionless. You have the credit cards on file. Historically, I think, in some ways, the monetization tools have been more mature than even a lot of the creator tools on the Facebook side, at least, because we focused early on friends. But as the creator tools kind of get better and better, or if you're an experienced creator who just knows how to do this stuff, then like there just is this big arbitrage opportunity of being able to come reach the billions of people who are on Facebook and monetize generally better than almost all other social platforms out there.
Yes, and hopefully within a year have dubs and you can reach even more people.
I think I think your request of getting that within a year is very reasonable.
I just want to harp on this because I'm telling you, it will change everything.
I agree.
All my most viewed reels on your platforms, my most viewed just short form on your platform are ones where I don't speak. Like when I try to go viral on Instagram or Facebook with short form content, I literally I don't know if you saw this one, but and also if I'm going too hard, you can just cut it out. But
no.
I mean, with our boy over here.
I'm with you on this. We actually launched the
look at this. So this is my most viewed video. It's just me running with progressively more and more money. And there's a reason why I don't say any words. So like I'm running with 40 grand and then 50, and I just go until I literally can't move anymore. It's pretty funny. And I would love to be able to talk in this, but the problem is if I say a word, boom, like the viewership's going to get cut by more than half because, then it's like only going to recommend it to people who speak English.
Yeah, so no, that's super interesting. I mean, because it's obviously most of the people on our services don't speak English, right? I mean, it's if you have 3 billion people, there's, it's like maybe 500 million people or so, it's, maybe a bit more
and then
than
of
that.
the people who do speak English, how many is it their first language where they actually want to consume content in it?
Totally.
So it just
totally. But I mean, but it sounds like from what you're saying, I think the opportunity for the AI dubbing may be even bigger than what I thought, because I kind of viewed it as just, okay, create content in whatever language you want to start, and then you'll get it in all the other languages. But I hadn't even considered what you just said, which is that it's not just about kind of taking the content that exists and spreading it to other languages. People aren't even creating content in some cases because language is going to be a barrier. So I think that you're absolutely right on that. So it's not just taking the current inventory and making it like much more kind of efficient in terms of how it's shown to the right people, but there's going to be all these things that don't even exist today that should. So no, I think within a year we'll have that.
It'll be exciting. Yeah, because we had a big resurgence on our content globally, even if we added to older videos, just because a lot of American content here is very high budget and stuff like that. And people in lower RPMs in other parts of the world, they don't have that kind of stuff. So when you finally get the dubs, people in other parts of the world are like, what the fuck? Someone spent $1 million on a video. They're used to seeing videos where creators spend $500 because people make way less, obviously, in other parts of the world. And so it's like a whole resurgence. But anyways, I won't harp on it. I got my 2 cents out there. I've probably hounded 30 people on your team about this. I call them all the time, and I'm like, hey, let's get some dubs going. So
I love it.
They'll find it.
We're on this. We're on this.
Yeah.
I think we probably have to offer Mark the opportunity too to go. Mark, what would you do if you were CEO of Beast Industries?
Oh God,
I don't know.
He's like, delete the YouTube channel, come over to Meta, full time.
I don't know. How's the Deez nuts business going?
Yeah, the chocolate stuff. It's going really well, actually. We are, as far as I know, we're the largest ethically sourced chocolate company in America, and just selling chocolate, getting kids out of child labor.
Yeah. I don't know, man. You're pretty creative.
Would you run with larger bags of money?
Yeah, let me ask a question, actually, Jim. How many views does that video have of you running with large bags of money?
On Instagram, I think it has 250. On YouTube, probably 300-400. On TikTok, another probably 200.
Wow.
So that one did really well. But that's the thing is when I don't speak, like I can get it to go super viral on these other platforms. But it's hard because it doesn't really build much depth. So it's like, obviously I want to talk and I want people to fall in love with me, but then I just like, you have no idea how big of a problem this is for me. Like it's like crazy because it's not just you guys. It's also the same thing on TikTok and other platforms as well. So like a lot of people know what I look like, but don't know what I sound like because I don't talk on these other platforms. Which is like kind of weird. The
monetization piece is really interesting because we also have friends who post not only short form content, but long form content on Facebook. And, we have friends who at least tell me that their number one monetization platform for long form video is Facebook. You post long form as well, right, Jamie?
Yeah. It's weird. I don't even know if you know this, Mark, but we gained more followers than anyone last year on Facebook. So that's a little fun fact. I don't know if you get like little summaries on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're doing great on all the platforms.
Yeah. But
turns out you know what you're doing. It's good.
Yeah. No, but
I think if you got into MMA content, it would be even better.
Oh, yeah. You would watch it?
I already watched some of your stuff, but yeah.
Yeah. So
all right, we'll do a video, me versus Zuck, MMA, but his arms are tied behind his back. And he's not allowed to kick me because that sounds like it would hurt like hell.
I don't know, Jim. I think you should just go for it.
Yeah, you got to just go for it.
Just go even.
So I guess last question for you, Jimmy, just as we paint the picture of like, a lot of what we're talking about is the opportunity on Facebook to post content, as Mark described it as like an arbitrage of opportunity right now. Like what does the future of Facebook video look like to you outside of the lens of dubbing?
Well, I mean, obviously it has, I believe, the most users out of any platform. So it's just the place to reach people like crazy. And I think more people just need to, make original content. And there's so many different platforms. It's so easy just to make content and repost it everywhere else. But just like taking it more serious because like we've been going pretty hard on it. Like I said, we gained more followers than anyone else last year. And, a lot of it was just like actually taking it serious and being like, damn, this is like a place where you can reach hundreds of millions of people,
Cool. Last question for both of you. It feels like every era of human history is defined by how information travels, right? Like there's an era that we can talk about around the printing press. There's this era that's, defined by the radio and movies and television. And I think as I think more about this era, Mark, you're kind of like the originator of this era, of the era of like us being able to communicate information through the internet. And I'm just curious if we look in the future, like what do we believe is the next era of how humans communicate with each other? Like if we're having this conversation in 5-10 years, how have things evolved?
Jimmy, you want to go first?
Well, I assume he's going to say we're all going to be using meta glasses and talking virtually, right? Just pop in the same room with each other.
I mean, I think that's part of it. I mean, because I do think that one part of the last 20 years that's still pretty interesting, right? It's like we got this whole portal to be able to communicate with people online, right? And kind of mapped the real world to online. And that was a lot of what early Facebook was like, you weren't just like some random person online, you're yourself, your real identity. And that was the first social community that really did that was very powerful. And now that's an idea across most of the social platforms that exist. But one thing that's still kind of interesting, so we're 20 years later, and when we want to access the internet, we basically have the physical world all around us, and then you just have this like tiny little rectangle that you use to access like all the digital content that's out there. So, I mean, to me, the thing that's going to be interesting about glasses is it's not just that, you're going to be able to feel like you're there with someone, even no matter where you actually are physically. It's the kind of complete merge between the physical and virtual worlds, right? The idea that the digital content that's going to be created isn't going to be confined to only being consumed through this like 6-inch, like phone rectangle that you have. It'll be that you can kind of have, holograms and content all around you. And that's going to open up completely new opportunities for content creation that historically we probably would have thought of as like software development, right? Or like an app, right? I mean, maybe, you have a hologram or you have some object or you're creating some game or something. Maybe like a TV that's on your wall in the future. It's, it doesn't need to be a physical thing anymore. It'll be a hologram, but it can display any content. And maybe in the past that would have been, like a software engineer or someone like that building it. But I think with all the AI tools, it's not going to take a software engineer to build it. It'll be more like a content creator who's basically using AI tools in order to create all this digital content that will basically just be able to populate and we'll be able to bring around with us all wherever we go in the world. So I think that that's going to be pretty compelling because today, even as important as the internet is in our lives, it's still just quite odd to me that you access it through this very small portal and it's just not fully integrated with us physically. And that's definitely going to change.
How many years till we're living that life where I'm walking home, I don't have a TV on my wall because your glasses are so good. It just like puts it there and all these things digitally.
Well, that's an interesting question. I think we're going to have glasses, and we have the Orion glasses as sort of the prototype now. We're aiming to have the first consumer product version of that within the next few years. So, and that includes making it at a price point that would be, what people would pay for like a computer. So
I'll pay whatever.
Yeah,
Can I just get a pair?
Well, if you haven't played with it, you should definitely come to our office and I'll show it to you. But one of the issues with it for the first version was it's we didn't want to sell something that was many thousands of dollars, right? We wanted to wait until we can get it down to about the cost of a computer or a high-end phone, and then sell it once it could be accessible to more people. But that's coming in the next few years. To your question, when are you going to not have a TV on your wall? That's an interesting question because, typically new platforms haven't fully made it so old ones disappear, right? So, when we got phones, we didn't completely stop using computers. It's just that the phone became primary, right? So now it's like, I find all the time I'm sitting at a desk, I have a computer in front of me, yet I want to send someone a message. I like pull out my phone to do it, right? I don't like type them the message on my computer, even though I have WhatsApp there too. I'll just do it on my phone. I think in the future, we're going to keep on having our phones with us, but we're going to just do more and more stuff with our glasses and our phones will just kind of stay in our pockets. So maybe over time, fewer people will have TV, or maybe you just won't watch your TV as much because you'll just kind of like snap your fingers and bring up a screen wherever you are, wherever you want to watch big content. But there are a bunch of, I think physical stuff is going to continue being valuable for a while. And obviously in this world too, a lot of the point we're talking about content, but a lot of what I get excited about this, like you were saying, is about the connecting with people thing. I mean, bring back to where we are today, and it's like, all right, we're launching the Friends tab on Facebook. We've always been about connecting with people as kind of our primary thing, and I think in the future this is going to enable there is something that's just very special about this feeling of presence, like you're there with another person, you can make eye contact with them, you feel like it's a very different kind of experience than you're sending someone a message or even you're doing video chat. It's like the feeling of being with a person is pretty magical, and that's just something that no product has been able to deliver so far before AR and VR. So yeah, I'm very excited about this. But yeah, no, next few years, I think it's going to be I think
more importantly, is it going to have an annoying little battery with the cable I got to plug it into that I got to keep on my hip?
Well, I think for the glasses, we're not going to... No cable. I mean, in the glasses, I think are going to have to... so they'll have a battery. They'll use compute from your phone. They'll have external compute if you want to grab more. I mean, the Orion prototype has that. No, it's going to be.
I think we need to get Jimmy up for a Orion demo, because Colin and I did that, and I would say that was a pretty amazing and pretty like holy shit experience.
Yeah, that's a good one. You got to come out. But in the meantime, I think I've got to run, guys. I got to go build AI dubbing. And
he's got an AI dub, so he can then wrestle someone tonight and snap their fingers or something.
All right.
Okay. Well, it was fun.
Mark, thanks so much. And Jimmy, thanks for joining.
You guys.
This was awesome.
No problem.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Later, man. Take care, boys.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Do I have to hit stop recording before I leave?
We'll stop the recording, but thank you guys so much.
Yeah,
that was
thank you
super
guys.
Fun. You can just exit out.
That's funny. I only remember asking you about MMA at the end. I wasn't going to bring this up live, but you were talking about how you felt like your videos would do better if you were in better shape. And you were talking about how you were getting into better shape, and I suggested that MMA would be a good way to get in shape. I don't want to call you out on this, but
you should have brought that up. That would have been funny.
I mean,
no, but even then, I was just so caught off guard because I could just tell you're very passionate because obviously as an entrepreneur, I'm like, oh, he's probably like a nerd that just talks about business all the time. Like, and I was just like, because you weren't public about any of it. I got it right on the cusp, and I was like, wow, he's like how he is towards this. Is what I was just expecting him to be like that and only talk about money and things like that. So you're just like way more rounded than I thought you were.
I was just trying to help you get in shape, Jimmy. You know?
Yes.
But you make it seem like I'm some kind of barbarian. It's like.
Well, I mean, it's good for you.
Who tries to fight people they've just met? You know, it's like, what kind of.
That's so good.
Well, and the other thing too, you're like, didn't you fly your helicopter, right?
Yeah, no, that's fun.
That was the other thing that I was like, damn, he's gonna. That just seems like a disaster waiting to happen. I'm surprised they let you do that.
Well, they didn't for a while. The security team convinced me for me to let them drive me around for 10 years, and then finally I just rebelled and was like, you know what? Not only am I going to drive myself, but I'm going to fly a helicopter. So.
Dang. I bet your insurance policy went through the roof after that.
I don't know. I do think we had to disclose in some SEC filing that I have like extreme hobbies or something like that. I don't.
Really?
There's some filing out there, but it's
so funny.
Oh,
anyway.
God.
All right, good seeing you guys.
All right, Mark.
Likewise.
All right,
Take care.
See you guys. All right, man. Initial reactions?
Can't believe he's only watched The Social Network once.
That was crazy.
It's such a good movie.
That was surprising to learn about, that he's only seen the movie once. Because like that movie was so influential in, I feel like, in our relationship to work. Like what work looked like for a young person.
I'll never forget, Justin Timberlake or Sean Parker saying, you know what's cool? $1 billion.
Or drop the. Like there's so many just unbelievable moments from that movie that I feel like dictated how I thought about what I was doing in my life.
I thought the conversation around cultural relevance was interesting because there's a big difference between using an app to DM someone and message and something that actually has cultural relevance.
Sure.
And his answer to maybe why Facebook lacked some of that cultural relevance or fell off a bit is because he said creators don't consider it their primary home.
Right.
Which I thought was interesting for him to acknowledge and say, like, yes, there may be a lot of creators on Facebook, but across the board right now, they are the most influential, and maybe they don't consider it their primary home.
I don't think we have a strong grasp on what it means to be a user of Facebook right now. Like, I just
think it can mean so many things. Like, I use Facebook right now primarily for marketplace.
Right. Yeah.
And that has nothing to do with myself being a creator or consuming other creators.
The first question is like, I think the first thing is we have to all become users of Facebook, right? In a more regular fashion. And then we can
I don't think so, actually.
You don't think so?
Like, I think a lot of us are already users of, I won't say Facebook, but Meta, right? With Instagram and DMs.
Yeah.
I think the way to get creators to Facebook, and we started to talk about this a little bit, was has to do with length of video that you can consume. Because I think short form content does not necessarily lend itself to deep connection, deep fandom, affinity for a creator. That's what long form content does. And, what we were saying and what Jimmy was talking about with dubbing was like, people don't even know what I sound like. The only thing that works is a short video that's incredibly visual.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if people are going to really lean into Facebook, you need to be able to watch long form video and connect deeper. And right now, you can't really do that.
Does that suggest though that like Facebook has to own the TV as well in a similar way that YouTube does, or at least participate in connected TV? Or
Yeah, 100%.
Right,
Because
it
I think
does.
that's how people are consuming long form now.
right. Yeah. So that then brings back up the question of like Facebook, tried that with original shows at one point with Facebook Watch. I think every platform moved on from the concept of original shows and wants to just allow creators to make the content. But, I do think that if the world of depth is moving into like long form video content, then the medium right now is connected TV, which is so interesting. Like we're almost talking about
or podcast audio platforms.
Yeah.
Because when he's talking about creators gaining trust and having influence, he's talking about long form podcasters.
Sure.
He's talking about Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Right? Theo Von, and those are not experiences you consume on Facebook.
Yeah, and I mean, look, to zoom out, like Mark came on our show to talk about this. So like that is like the thing that we're talking about is like this world of long form conversation is, so maybe that's a world they step into. But yeah, I think they do have to dictate what type of creator. Like when he asked us the question, is that the platform's responsibility to tell creators what type of video to upload? Not exactly, but it is the platform's responsibility to highlight what type of video they want on the platform. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think how they build the product dictates the content that succeeds.
Sure.
Right? So it's almost like whether they want the responsibility or not, it's there. So for them to, like, even not making a choice is a choice, right? For them to have a platform that prioritizes short form, highly visual, language agnostic video, that's a choice, and it's going to lend itself to certain creators who succeed.
Yeah, I guess right now.
So changing the product
yeah.
would change the type of creator who would succeed.
Right. If they announced, hey, we have essentially a place for you to upload your video podcast, and that place will also push it out to other RSS feeds, then you go, oh, okay, I guess it's a podcasting platform. I guess it's where I can do that. So yeah, I do think that that's interesting, that like whatever product they build would dictate which creators it attracts. And right now, the short form vertical video is the major product that they have that creators go to.
Yeah, it is interesting that like long form content is basically just YouTube now. Like it's YouTube and everyone else is in another place. But YouTube has this history of the partner program and compensating creators via ads that other platforms don't have to the same degree. But I wonder if like Facebook had a more built out TV app.
Yeah.
If you could actually, transport some audience there.
I do think just zooming out and going like his idea for connecting like a local directory of students in his own community, that really, like pulling on that thread, really created where we are today, which is an interesting thought of like, if you go back to what he kind of alluded to, like, hey, maybe phase 2 is building college directories and actually a more personally curated internet to your local surroundings. Where do we net out, if we come back to that and like the younger generation gets that experience again of, oh, whoa, the internet used to be actually pretty localized, because the current, group of like, 20-year-olds or college students, like their experience with the internet is you produce something for a lot of people. You don't necessarily like produce something for your friends unless it's in the context of a message. So
I think you do it though if you did it at least if it felt private or if it felt exclusive.
Yeah.
Like when we were on OG Facebook, it felt private. It felt like adults didn't actually know
that's true
what we were posting, the photos that were going out. And it felt like an exclusive opportunity. Okay, our school now has access.
That's true.
And I wonder, how do you recreate that for younger generations where they feel like their experience is exclusive and unique again?
That's a really good point, because I think back to the photos I was willing to post at that time on Facebook. Like, it's pretty wild. Like that was under the assumption that no one was going to find them. And then
Which is probably why Snapchat took off.
Right.
Here's photos that will disappear.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Well, I mean, look, that was that was such a unique opportunity to sit and like talk to someone like that who was such a major figure in building the infrastructure for the way like our career works, and also like the way that the world is connected today.
I would say it felt very intentional that he wore that shirt. Clearly it was intentional.
Clearly
that
was very intentional. I think it's very interesting that he's pushing on this nostalgia play. Very interesting to see if he aggressively goes, hey, you know, I can also empathize with him a little bit, and I don't want to suggest that I'm like Mark in any way, but I can empathize with the fact that he made a brand, and like Facebook was his brand that really first took off. And I'm sure he's kind of like, whoa, Facebook's not a part of this conversation anymore. Like, that's my brand. I want that to be a part of the conversation again.
Totally.
All right. Well, that was an awesome episode. That was an awesome experience. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks so much to Jimmy for joining us on that episode. That was crazy. And we'll see you next week.